Mr. Chairman, thank you for being here, Ms. Lake. The U.S. Agency for Global Media is tasked with providing unbiased news worldwide to over 427 million listeners, many of whom live in countries without freedom of press or freedom of the speech. And it is your job to promote the American ideals of freedom and democracy. So I wanted to start just by confirming, do you support democracy or authoritarianism?
I think that's pretty obvious. I support freedom and democracy.
Democracy. Great. Would you agree that accepting the results of a fair and free election are critical to a functioning democracy?
Would you agree that standing up and cheering for a cancer survivor would have been the nice thing to do?
Ms. Lake, this is my time.
Okay.
Would you accept that accepting the results of a free and fair election are critical to a functioning democracy? It's a yes or no question. Do you think it's essential for democracy to have a free and fair election?
We need free and fair elections.
Free and fair elections,
we don't
great.
have
Thank
them.
you so much. And yet, you have, to this day, refused to acknowledge that President Trump lost the 2020 election, something that even members of President Trump's own Justice Department have admitted and multiple lawsuits have shown. And we heard my colleague from Arizona talk about what happened in Arizona. So it concerns me that you are now tasked with this responsibility of ensuring democracy around the world when you won't even accept a free and fair election. I'm also concerned by your ability to promote the American ideals of freedom and democracy, given your record defending and praising dictators. Let's look at Hungary. You previously stated that Hungary is, quote, doing it right, and that Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán was, quote, the greatest in America, greatest in caps, and, quote, and equal to President Trump. Do you stand by those statements?
I think that Viktor Orbán has done a very good job at protecting his people and protecting the Hungarian culture.
And so,
I think
Ms. Lake,
if you ask people in Europe, other parts of Europe,
the question here is very simple.
They would be wishing that their leaders stood up for their people.
Is Viktor Orbán the greatest in Europe? Yes or no?
I think he's done the best job in Europe, yes.
Okay, and so even Secretary Rubio acknowledged in a 2019 letter that under Orbán, Hungary took a downward democratic trajectory, and yet you insist that Hungary is doing it right. I want to cover some of the policies that Mr. Orbán is responsible for. Would you consider banning LGBTQ pride parades like Viktor Orbán has done in Hungary as doing it right, recognizing that pride parades are protected under the First Amendment?
What does this have to do with the U.S. Agency for Global Media?
I'm asking you whether you support the policies of dictators and authoritarians or whether you support democracy. You have said that Viktor Orbán is the greatest in Europe. So do you think that Viktor Orbán is doing it right when he bans pride parades?
I think Viktor Orbán has put the people of his country first.
So the answer is yes, you think it's appropriate that he's banning pride parades and using facial recognition technology to actually profile people that go to those parades? How about the fact that Orbán and his party control 80% of Hungary's media market?
Are we here talking about Hungary?
Yes, we are, because guess what? Your agency actually is responsible for other countries
Hungary
and
is
unbiased
an ally.
news.
Can I remind you that Hungary is an ally of America?
Oh, and so you think that it's okay that Viktor Orbán, the greatest in Europe, according to you, controls 80% of Hungary's media market? Is that level free and fair reporting?
I don't. You obviously don't like our ally Hungary. I think that
I'm asking you if you think that it's appropriate. Ms. Lake, it is my time. I'm asking you if it is appropriate that a country, Viktor Orbán's government, controls 80% of Hungary's media market. It's just a yes or a no. Do you think that's okay? Think he's the greatest of all time?
I don't have an opinion on what Viktor Orbán is doing in Hungary.
It's not up for debate. It's a fact that has been documented by numerous organizations.
By who?
Now,
Can you tell me where that fact come from?
Not only
where
have
did
you
that
supported.
fact come
Excuse
from,
me, Ms. Lake.
Representative?
I'm sorry to remind you, you are not a governor. You're not even a candidate for governor. You're here, and this is my time. Not only have you supported dictators that have supported policies that erode democracy, you also spread claims promoted by Russian state media that the Pentagon was funding bioweapon labs in Ukraine. These claims have been proven resoundingly false, even by Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Do you still stand by that prior statement, Ms. Lake?
I know that many members of Congress care more about funding
Ukraine. Do you
Ukraine
stand by that statement, which is clearly a lie?
I know that
you
voted.
are responsible for an agency that is supposed to promote truth, and yet, over and over again, you are promoting dictators and authoritarians and lies. So I am asking you if you stand by the statement that you made that was promoted by Russian state media that the Pentagon was funding bioweapon labs in Ukraine. Proven false by Marco Rubio. Do you stand by that statement?
I understand you're trying to get a fundraising video here.
Okay,
So
well, you clearly don't understand that you are actually here before Congress. Mr. Chairman, I just want to say
you had more than enough time. I gave you a few extra seconds, and your time has expired.
Unfortunately,
and I now recognize Representative
Ms. Lake is not responding to the questions.
Can I have just 1 second to respond? Because who is going to be speaking next?
Representative Davidson is next.
Oh, may I have just 1 second to respond to that? Obviously, from some of the questions we're hearing from the Democrats, they care more about a lot of other countries than America. And we've seen
a heated exchange unfolded during a congressional hearing as Representative Pramila Jayapal sharply questioned Kari Lake over her views on democracy, elections, and authoritarian leaders. Jayapal began by outlining the mission of the U.S. Agency for Global Media, which provides news to more than 427 million people worldwide, many living in countries without press freedom. She emphasized that the agency's core responsibility is to promote American values of democracy and free expression. She opened with a direct question: does Kari Lake support democracy or authoritarianism? Lake responded that she supports freedom and democracy. Jayapal then pressed further, asking whether accepting the results of free and fair elections is essential to a functioning democracy. After repeated attempts to get a clear answer, Lake eventually acknowledged that free and fair elections are necessary. However, Jayapal pointed out that Lake has repeatedly refused to acknowledge that former President Donald Trump lost the 2020 election, a fact confirmed by multiple court rulings and members of Trump's own Justice Department. Jayapal said this raised serious concerns about Lake's ability to promote democratic values abroad. The questioning then shifted to Lake's past praise of Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán. Jayapal cited Lake's previous remarks calling Hungary doing it right and describing Orbán as the greatest and comparable to President Trump. When asked whether she stood by those statements, Lake defended Orbán, saying he had done a strong job protecting Hungary's people and culture. She went on to say she believed Orbán was the best leader in Europe. Jayapal countered by referencing a 2019 letter from Senator Marco Rubio acknowledging that Hungary had experienced democratic backsliding under Orbán. She asked whether policies such as banning LGBTQ pride parades, protected by free speech principles in the United States, represented doing it right. Lake responded that Orbán had put his country's people first, effectively defending the policy. Jayapal also raised concerns about Hungary's media landscape, noting that Orbán's government controls roughly 80% of the country's media market. She questioned whether that level of control could be considered free and fair reporting, especially given Hungary's status as a U.S. ally. As tensions rose, Jayapal reminded Lake that the hearing was not a political campaign event and that she was there to answer questions. She then accused Lake of amplifying claims promoted by Russian state media, specifically allegations that the Pentagon funded bioweapons laboratories in Ukraine. Jayapal emphasized that these claims had been widely debunked, including by Senator Marco Rubio. She repeatedly asked Lake whether she still stood by the statement. Lake responded by accusing Democrats of prioritizing Ukraine over the United States and said she stood by her remarks, prompting Jayapal to call the claim a lie and accuse Lake of repeatedly promoting falsehoods and authoritarian figures. As time expired, the committee chair cut off the exchange and moved on to the next speaker. Lake attempted to respond briefly, claiming that Democrats were more concerned with other countries than with America. The contentious exchange highlighted deep divisions over democracy, election legitimacy, and America's role in promoting democratic values worldwide.